really exciting. It's so awesome to see this kind of vibrant startup culture and community right here in Pasadena. I see some of the Scratch team making their way in the back. Guys, great to see you. So I'm really excited to be here. I've never been to one before. I don't know what people normally talk about, so I'm kind of riffing here. So just kind of like, give me some signals if I get going off the rails. Okay, my background. I have spent over 14 years in startups, but about 14 years in fintech startups specifically. I joined Green Dot about 14 years ago, oh my gosh, when it was really a pretty early stage startup based out here in Monrovia. It was called Next Estate Communications at the time. We took the company public. I led the IPO in 2010 with a $2 billion valuation, and today the company is the largest issuer of prepaid cards in the United States, which I guess would probably make it the largest in the world too, because this is pretty much what prepaid is. I'll talk a little bit about that. I went over to Stockholm, Sweden to be the CFO of a European unicorn called Klarna. Klarna is a real innovator in terms of online payments and particularly financing and checkout for e-commerce. I'll talk a little bit about that one too. Came back to my favorite place in the world, Pasadena, and started a company called Scratch. This was a little bit over a year ago, and Scratch is on a great trajectory, but early in our journey, but having a lot of early success. What is so exciting about fintech that keeps me coming back and keeps the investment dollars rolling in? So in the United States, financial services is the third largest industry in the country, and it's the second largest in the private sector. So over $1 trillion of revenue. I'm not talking about loans, balance sheet. There's actually $1 trillion of revenue in the financial services industry in the US. Over a third of that is non-interest income. The balance is interest income, so you can kind of think of that as the money that banks are making off of the capital that they deploy. That's the revenue on their balance sheet. But 36% of it is just fees. This is the revenue they generate for providing advice, for transacting trades, for creating a marketplace, for processing payments. These are all things that are heavily data and technology dependent, and there's no reason that only banks can do them. So the exciting thing about fintech is 36% of 1.1 trillion is about $400 billion. And there's no reason that the banks should be having all the fun and enjoying $400 billion in revenue. There's no reason that startup companies can't attack that and start to do it better and capture a lot of that market share. And that's exactly what's going on. Over the last 10 years, but really more recently, a lot of new money has gone into fintech as startups are attacking every piece of a bank. From the way loans are originated, from providing financial advice, from processing payments. So this is really one of the most active areas of venture investment, not only in the US, but in the world. And we're starting to see some serious disruption. 2011, not that long ago, the top 3 banks were responsible for originating 50% of all home loans. And there were 4 non-banks that were much smaller in terms of mortgage originations. Now, 6 of the top 10 are non-banks, and the top 3 banks have gone from 50% down to 20% of all originations. So this is one of many fintech sectors that is under attack by a wave of fintech startups. So, what does Steve Harvey have to do with fintech? Turns out a lot, I guess. So Steve Harvey is the spokesperson for Green Dot, which is here in Pasadena, out in Hastings Ranch. Green Dot started out actually as Steve Street had the idea of selling stuff to teenagers online through a website called WeSellCrap.com. This is true. But he couldn't figure out how they could pay for the stuff, so he said, well, I'll create a disposable credit card that will sell at a 7-Eleven, and then they can use that to buy stuff at WeSellCrap.com. And someone said, if you can figure out how to sell a disposable, reloadable credit card at 7-Eleven, that's actually a much better idea than WeSellCrap.com. And he was a pretty smart and innovative guy. And he said, wow, that's right, it is. And now you have a $2 billion company. And Steve Harvey is the spokesperson. So what did Green Dot recognize and do really well? Well, we have a large population of unbanked and underbanked people in the US. And big banks, they don't really want them as customers. And to the extent they want them so that they can hit them with surprise fees. So what's the promise? Free checking. But what's the reality?
You must use your debit card often enough.
You what?
You have to use your debit card often enough.
You have to use it. You have to use it a lot, and you have to make sure that you never overdraft it, and whether through a check or through a debit card transaction. And the average American paid $165 in overdraft fees in 2011. So free checking is really not free. And worse than that, if you leave an account in an overdrawn status, you're essentially blacklisted from ever opening another bank account. So what Green Dot recognizes, we can do this much better. We don't have to charge these outrageous fees to make a healthy profit. We just need to provide a simple and reliable checking account with a debit card attached to it, one low, simple monthly fee that people understand. We'll waive the monthly fee if you meet certain usage thresholds. We'll give people a large free ATM network, and it's completely risk-free. We'll never charge you a penalty fee, and we'll never report you to a bureau if you abandon the card, so it's completely risk-free. Turns out people really like that. They have over 5 million active customers. This was actually the year we went public, so revenues went from 34 million in 2005 to 377 million in 2010. There was a lot of excitement about the company when we went public, and it was a really fun and exciting ride. But sometimes you can have a bad day too. So it's really fun when you create $2 billion of value for your investors. When you go over the next 2 years and you take that $2 billion and you watch it fall to $1 billion and 800 million, and then on a single day when your stock price falls by 55% and you're the CFO, that's a really, really bad day. This was a tough part of the ride. This was the really fun part of the ride. This was the tough part of the ride. And what was going on was that the market didn't believe that we could hold on to that market share. They said, okay, there's this little company, it's just a debit card, it's just a Visa or MasterCard, anyone can do that. Okay, so it's got some attractive fees and has some nice features. Well, the banks are gonna eat their lunch. And not surprisingly, American Express, JP Chase, PayPal, Western Union, all launched products with essentially the same features as ours. And in the case of JP Chase and American Express, it was free, had no fees at all. And in the case of American Express, had about $100 million marketing budget behind it. So that's pretty scary. And what the market was saying is these guys, we were left for dead. We were basically left for dead in July of 2012. But we still had a strong customer base. And then over the next 5 years, a long road to recovery. And what turned out was that we really had built a brand that people resonated with. They liked the value of it. They didn't really understand some of the other offerings from our competitors. And we were able to keep our market share and keep growing, and now the company is back to about that $2 billion valuation. So that was quite a ride. Klarna. Has anyone ever heard of Klarna? A few people have. So Klarna is a European unicorn. So this is one of the relatively few European startups with a valuation of over $1 billion. It started in Stockholm a little over 10 years ago, and the idea was to create a one-click buying experience for people when they're shopping online. So if I recognize who you are, maybe I want to take every point of friction I can out of the buying experience. So you click, you buy, and we'll settle it later. If I know who you are and I feel like you're a good credit risk, I'm comfortable extending that credit to you. I'll let you shop, buy the goods, try them on, try on the shoes, and we'll actually allow you to pay later. If you want to split up the payments over 6 months, that's fine. If you want to pay it off over a year, if you want a revolving account, like a credit card, we'll do that too. So this says, what really is smooth with an extra O? So it's all about smooth payments, that the company exists to take friction out of the buying experience. Now, they're in 18 countries, 45 million customers, launched in the US fairly recently. You might have seen some of the ads. And with this kind of, I think Klarna did a number of things that were really innovative, but one of them was recognizing that buying and paying don't have to be the same thing. I want to, if I'm selling something, I want to allow you to click and buy it as quickly as possible. So I'm going to give you multiple payment options. So they've got this pay over time option. They have pay after delivery. You can pay right now with card. And this is incredibly popular, and the company continues to grow very quickly. So when I came back to the States, what I was thinking a lot about was, this is great for e-commerce, but why don't we have this everywhere? Why don't we have every kind of store where you can walk in, and if the merchant recognizes me, or if I want to split up my payments over a longer period of time, I should be able to do that over my cell phone. So I started looking around with my co-founder Caleb, who's in the back, and this is sort of the genesis of Scratch. And we said, we're going to start with an extreme focus in one market, and we're going to provide the world's greatest payment experience in one particular market, basically by providing credit to people and allowing them to pay as they want. So that took us to puppies, veterinary care, incredibly expensive, growing very quickly. Only 1% of pet parents have pet insurance. 40% of millennials don't have credit cards. 60% of Americans don't have $500 of savings. As you can see, $500 of savings is probably not even going to get you through a hip dysplasia or an ear infection. Or actually, in my case, I was at the vet yesterday. My poodle got a foxtail in her ear when we were hiking, and it went all the way in and pierced the eardrum. So there you go, $1,000. Just go for a hike in Eaton Canyon, and you have a $1,000 expense. This is a huge pain point because people get a pet, they don't expect this type of large financial outlay. So you've got someone in the waiting room, they find out what this is going to cost them, there's real urgency. They might have a good job, they might have assets, they might own a home, but they didn't walk in expecting to have to come up with $1,000 on the spot. So what Scratch does is that we basically provide an app that doesn't require any integration with the vet's office, doesn't require any time from the vet office's staff, and we will immediately underwrite people and approve them. We notify the vet's office that the customer's been approved, so now they know what credit we are extending to that customer, and they can get your animal immediately on the operating table and give them the care that they need. No need to go to the bank and get a loan or call your uncle or whatever else you might want to do, access a home equity line. We'll extend you the credit. And what we find is that these people are generally paying off these credits very quickly. These are so it's really a question of convenience and urgency rather than having the ability to pay. Turns out, I think we're onto something. Here's the number of partner clinics that we're in, and it's been growing very fast. And I'm sorry, I haven't updated this chart in a few months. So this was February, we're at about 150. We're actually now in June at over 500? Over 650. 650. All right. So just imagine a bar 4 times higher than this one, and that's where we are today. We've been in the market really. So we started signing up clinics in July. In September, we really started with the product offering, and we recently broke through $1 million of revenue on an annualized run rate, and we're doing over $1 million of transactions a month. We get about 3,000 applications per month right now from clinics, and it's growing very quickly. So hopefully this will be another a great Pasadena fintech startup. I'll come back in a year or two and we'll see numbers popping through the top of the chart. But I wanted to talk a little bit also about fintech and what's sort of going on in the fintech space more broadly, because it was truly an exciting period of time for the sector in 2014 and 15. There's a lot of new money went in. And then it seemed like the wheels kind of came off in 2016 as some of the biggest companies in fintech really started to have some problems. You might have heard about LendingClub. The CEO was fired over faulty loans. Losses have been rising at LendingClub. Prosper laid off about 28% of its staff. OnDeck stock is down far below its IPO price. And I think what's going on is that the excitement over, hey, we can do a lot of the same things that the banks are doing, and we think we can do it better, was great. But now, really, you're starting to see separation of companies that are truly doing something with competitive differentiation. In the case of LendingClub and OnDeck, they're essentially offering loans online, and it turns out a lot of other people can jump online and offer loans as well. They have really innovative sources of financing, but I think the challenge is that they didn't really innovate that much on the consumer offering. And what's happening is that marketplace is getting pretty crowded, and you're starting to see some of those competitive pressures. So what's going on with FinTech 2.0? I think there are a couple of themes, there are a few strategies that are emerging where you're seeing a lot of the new investment going in. One of them is that this is a $400 billion space. You don't need to take over all of small business lending to build a great company. So you're seeing some niche players that are coming in and saying, I'm going to understand one particular type of customer very well, and I'm going to be the best at servicing them that I can using technology. Apple Pie just did a big round. They are specifically providing financing to franchisees. So you want to start a new Mike's Jersey Subs, they are the best provider. They'll get you the best loan on the best terms. FastPay here in LA, recently I think broke through $1 billion of total loans financed. They basically factor receivables for digital content providers. So if you have a YouTube channel, you get paid on net 60 days from Google. They will basically factor that receivable and provide you money right away. Another interesting thing about this, though, is that one of the reasons banks are bad at this is because they're not allowed to focus. The regulators won't allow banks to become too deep in one sector, because then you're considered a monoline bank, and regulators actually say that's a source of risk. Whereas a non-bank, a fintech company, doesn't have that kind of regulatory burden. So they can really dive in deep and dominate one sector. And this is frankly what we're doing at Scratch. I mean, we are going to be the best at lending to customers in veterinary hospitals, and then we'll branch into other segments as well once we master veterinary. Bitcoin and blockchain, obviously a lot of hype there. Just saw there's over 100 startups right now in Bitcoin and blockchain space, so both in terms of cryptocurrencies, but then also companies that are taking that distributed ledger technology and taking it into other areas of banking or in other sectors entirely. There's this movement towards open banking, a company called OpenFin, which is basically creating a platform for banks to cooperate and operate through open APIs, so that we can add new services on top of them that will work interchangeably regardless of who your bank is. And then a lot of the startups are saying, look, instead of trying to kill the banks, let's provide services for them. Let's work together with them. So OnDeck, which has been trying to be the leading small business lender and be essentially a competitor to the banks, now they're offering OnDeck as a service where they take that technology and allow banks to use the technology to offer their own loans to their customers. So that's sort of where I think the state of the industry is right now. It's an interesting spot, and actually LA is quite a hub for financial technology. There are a number of particularly specialty finance, small business lending in the west side and downtown, real estate lending. This is an area where I think LA can really become one of the global hubs for this area of technology. And I'm super excited to be back here after a few years in Sweden and to be starting my own business here. Thank you.
Thanks, John. It's actually really impressive to see how you were able to successfully manage and direct as a CFO 2 companies from start to $2 billion. It's pretty impressive. I think that's amazing, and I hope that you'll be able to carry that success into your own organization with Scratch as the CEO. So we wish you the best of luck on that, and thank you so much for sharing your success stories with us. We're going to open it up to Q&A now. John will walk around with the mic. If you have a question, raise your hand. I warn you, if your statement does not end with something that seems like a question mark, we will yank the mic away from you. So keep that in mind. In case questions now, comments later. Will you be, John, can you hang out with us for a little bit if people want to share stories or get a little bit more information beyond the Q&A? Okay, cool. So if you have that comment or story you'd like to share, save it for offline. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. You know, I heard that some of the Pasadena Angels also invested in the Green Dot, and it was one of, if not their most successful investments. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That is mostly correct, I think. It was actually the first round at Green Dot was actually the Tech Coast Angels out on the west side. But there were some Pasadena angel investors involved, and it was actually the Tech Coast Angels that kind of sort of provided that semi-institutional round. The return to the Tech Coast Angels was well over 100 to 1. It was, I think it actually though might only be their second best investment ever. They've had one other one that I think exceeded the Green Dot returns a little bit. But they were great partners, and we had a couple of board members out of the Tech Coast Angels as well. I think these angel organizations can really bring a lot of value to the table and bring some great investors.
So a couple quick questions. Love what you're doing. It sounds really cool. I'm sure it's going to be great. Is it applicable in the veterinarian space because of the immediate need and unplanned events? Is that what makes it more applicable? If it's more planned, does the service lose applicability? That's one question. And then the second one is, what's the revenue model for you? Is it a transaction fee? Is it interest on what ends up being a loan, or how does that work? I'm presuming it's all coming from the consumer, not from that hospital.
Yeah, great questions. So in terms of our revenue model, it actually has 2 sides to it. So we earn a transaction fee from the clinic, from the hospital, because essentially we're saving a sale, or you had a customer who had a problem or may have had a problem paying that bill up front. We're stepping in and we're closing that transaction. So if you think of Visa, MasterCard, American Express might charge 2% off the top of the transaction, we'll charge a little more than that because we're saying this customer might not have a credit card in their pocket. So we'll earn a pretty substantial fee from the vet. And then on the consumer side, we have, if they pay it off in 30 days, so if they just needed the float for a couple of weeks and they're gonna call a relative or access a home equity line or file an insurance claim. Some of our customers actually have insurance, pay it off in 30 days. We have a 30-day product with no interest and no fees, and that's completely free. Most customers do a 12-month payment plan, which has an interest rate based on your own credit score. So most of our revenues actually comes from consumer interest, but quite a lot of it comes from the vet as well. And I think you hit on sort of the key factors that make this a good place for this type of credit offering. There's a lot of urgency. These are typically unplanned events. The average ticket size is high. It's often too high to put on your credit card if you have a credit card. Maybe some people have a relatively low balance credit card. They just can't throw $4,000 on it. They need a plan where they can pay that off over an extended period of time. Very few people have insurance. which is another factor. So it looked like, for a lot of reasons, kind of a perfect storm for a place where a really kind of slick and easy credit offering could have a lot of legs, and that's really proved to be the case.
When you were talking about Klarna, I heard recently about Amazon doing something similar for apparel and accessories and that sort of thing. Is that because Klarna is involved in that, or do you see that Klarna is having an influence on the market? Are you familiar with that?
Actually, I'm not. I mean, I'm more familiar. I'm familiar with Amazon providing credit to small businesses, and they have a credit card. But is this more of like a pay later product that they have?
Yeah. Sorry. So what I heard about is that basically for clothing and accessories, you can have it delivered. You have 7 days to try it on and decide if you want to purchase. Depending upon the number of items that you purchase, there's like a discount model where you have some basis of savings and that sort of thing. So it sounded a lot like Klarna, mostly because you had apparel and accessories picture with the Klarna model.
Right.
So I didn't know if that was having an influence in the marketplace, or Klarna is somehow financing that, or.
Look, I'm sure Klarna had a big role in inspiring that offering, but I don't think they're directly involved with it. And frankly, Amazon's a super tough competitor. I mean, and Klarna has had a pretty hard time in markets where Amazon is dominant. And fortunately, where they started, Amazon was not and still isn't dominant. Because Amazon already provides this very seamless one-click checkout. So in a sense, what Klarna is trying to do is create an Amazon-like buying experience for all the other merchants out there. But Amazon's doing a pretty good job of doing it on their own.
Over here.
Hi, great talk. I actually had a question about one of your winning strategies about niche focus. I was curious if you had any comments on when you choose to expand services beyond where you started off at, and mostly kind of in the ever-pervasive fear of other competitors kind of coming in and sort of replicating your model or building on top of it.
Yeah, good question. I'd say in general, when I talk to startups, other entrepreneurs, 9 out of 10 times the problem that I see is kind of the opposite of that. It's just trying to do too many things too quickly, and you see it. I see it over and over again. We're gonna build the greatest technology that's going to solve these 5 problems in this one industry, and it's so hard to solve one problem well. So we've tried to force ourselves to. It might sound almost absurdly focused in a sense. You're providing loans for expensive veterinary bills. But I think the reality is that if you pick a industry with a large addressable market like financial services, being focused can still give you a lot of runway. And actually, once you've dominated one space, I think you branch out from there. So I really think, in most cases, it makes a lot of sense to go deep early on, and then you expand out from there. Like eBay trading Pez dispensers, and now it sells everything. And Amazon sold books, and now they sell everything. Examples go on and on. So, but it's a great question. It's one we talk about a lot, is when is the right time for us to stop doing only veterinary and start adding other segments? And the answer is not yet.
So great presentation. Thank you very much for coming and talking to us. So distributed ledger technology, so blockchain, do you see this being adopted by all areas of the financial market, or is it going to be more specified to like credit cards, transactions, etc.? And the reason I ask, I feel it's a very safe, secure way of processing transactions, whatever it may be, and I feel it could be applicable to all areas. But really, what's your perspective on adopting this in the overall market right now?
I think I should have taken that slide down before someone asked me about it. I actually, though, to the extent of what I know about blockchain, which is somewhat limited, I'm extremely excited about its potential, and I'm an absolute. I mean, I think the blockchain technology for all types of industries or settings where people have to have faith in a common underlying set of numbers this is kind of unrivaled. I mean, and really revolutionary. So I think it has applications in a huge number of segments, which is why you see so much investment going in there. Bitcoin as a means of trading kind of takes one of the key roles of banks has been this settlement house, and would act as an escrow in a settlement house. And you don't really need that when you have a functioning distributed ledger, when you have Bitcoin, which is is amazing. I mean, the potential of it is pretty incredible. What that means a Bitcoin is actually worth, that's the piece I can't quite get my head around. I don't know, but I'm a big believer in the potential of the technology.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was curious, when you're doing marketing research, looking to go into a particular niche, what are you looking at? So are you buying marketing reports? Are you calling up vets and actually talking with them personally on the phone, looking at public statistics, all the above? And then when it came to working with vets, what kind of tipped you over the edge where you thought this is what we should focus on?
That's a great question. I mean, I've worked at a number of early stage startups, but I generally got there after that process had already happened. So the experience from scratch was the first time I and my co-founder had done it, in first person. So we did, obviously you can gather a lot of information about different industries for free without having to pay for anything, which is wonderful, and you can learn a lot that way. But ultimately, a good startup idea involves a customer with a problem, and you have a solution for it. So you have to go out and find that person in person, or at least on the phone, and find a bunch of them, and confirm your hypothesis. Say, and we tried, initially the idea was we're going to provide financing and payments for human healthcare. There's Obamacare, people have these bronze plans, you have these large deductibles, and we said, people are walking into the doctor and finding they have a $2,000 payment to make that day. The problem was when we talked to doctors, the problem was not as acute. It was a problem that played out over months instead of playing out in their waiting room. Because it would go to insurance, it would get adjudicated by insurance, the bill would come home, the customer wouldn't do anything. 30 days later, they still wouldn't do anything. So they didn't have this kind of urgency of someone standing in a waiting room saying, I need this service right now, I need to come up with the money today. And that's what those conversations sort of steered us away from that opportunity. And we talked to dentists, we talked to plastic surgeons, we talked to home improvement and auto repair people, but the vets, every vet we talked to said, this is a real problem in my clinic every day, and I would use this. And they were actually really nice people, and they were kind of friendly, so that was nice too. So that's really what kind of pushed us in that direction.
Okay.
So Scratch is a company that provides financing for pet owners. And my company, We Know C Funding, is a company that provides financing to small real estate developers to finance a project. So we're kind of taking customers from traditional banks and financing companies. Now, what would be your suggestion if we try to reach beyond your current channel, your vet offices, or our real estate broker developers?
Yeah. What did you say? I'm sorry, what was the name of the company you said?
We Know C Funding. We provide real estate crowdfunding.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a really interesting space too, where you're also seeing a lot of business being pulled away from the banks, particularly in non-owner occupied houses. So flippers and all sorts of projects like that. I think it's the same process that we were just talking about. Is if we were going to essentially go out and pursue a new kind of customer, you need to make sure that there's a real pain point there that you can solve. In our case, there's nothing really specific about our product to a vet clinic. There are a couple things that are specific. We actually, a little bit of our underwriting is based on what clinic it is, how old your pet is, what type of animal you have, believe it or not, actually factors into our underwriting. But for the most part, our underwriting is not heavily dependent upon veterinary. So in our case, it's really just about finding another customer with a similar problem and taking our product, making some adjustments, and launching it in that channel.
This is a perspective you may have. There's a lot of innovative fintech in Europe, Scandinavian, Eastern Europe, and that. Then they come to the U.S. and they seem to struggle and fail. Is that a partnering opportunity, or should they be doing something different?
Yeah, great question. You know, I think fintech in general is it's very hard to take cross-border. It's not, you know, social media, Facebook. These are companies that you run overseas, or even Uber, or even these you know, gig economy type companies are easier to take from one country to another. Financial services is a tough nut to crack because you have very specific behavior by country. I mean, in Denmark, there's a certain type of credit card that everyone uses. It's not a Visa or a MasterCard, and it's Dankcard, and it only exists there. And it was very hard for us to crack into Denmark. Germany, people still heavily use cash. They don't use credit cards at all. But you cross the border into Austria, and people are using credit cards. So it's the usage, the consumer behavior is very different, and then the regulation is very different too. I mean, the regulators are essentially protecting. They're highly protective of the financial services industry. So something that works in one country, you might need a new bank, you might need a completely new product. So it's really tough to go, even within Europe, it's hard to go country to country, and then to jump the Atlantic to the US is extremely hard. So what is the lesson there? You know, I think you need, in the case of Klarna, what we found was it wasn't enough just to launch a sales team in each country and to try to keep all of the product and the underwriting and everything centralized in Sweden. We actually needed to more or less create a complete organization with their own product team, with their own underwriting team, with their own sales and marketing people, at least for the larger markets like the UK and the US. And it took a while to get to that realization because things that, you know, I mean, there are a number of other factors too. I mean, Sweden in a lot of ways is the perfect place to start a consumer credit business. You have incredible data on people when you make an underwriting decision. And your ability to collect on them is pretty amazing too. I mean, you can basically sell bad debt at par to the government, and they will garnish wages from people until they collect bad debt. So you almost don't even have to worry about whether the customer can pay you back or not. You just need to initiate a bunch of credits. Obviously, that's not true here, so it's quite challenging. But yeah, I think you have to approach each country as and not assume that things that worked in your home country will work elsewhere.
One last question.
So with the company name and logo like Scratch, it obviously works very well to the niche market of veterinary care. But in the future, say you do decide to branch into the auto repair or emergency travel industry or something like that, is your strategy to create separate branding, like, you know, for each of the new markets that you go into? Is that a good strategy?
I think it is. I think we'll probably need a sub-brand and a new website, new landing page for some of the new sectors that we go into. I mean, part of the reason we're very successful in veterinary is that people meet us and they can tell that this is our focus. We have one big competitor in the space that's been around for about 20 years, and they have a kind of generic product that they offer in many different segments. And the fact that we are focused here is a plus. So I think we'll probably need a new brand, a sub-brand, new website. So yeah, I think so.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for your questions and also the very concise answers. This is definitely a master of his domain. Another warm applause for John Keatley. Great job. Thank you so much.